Good morning. It is Friday, February the 18th. I'm Shane Seeley and this is the CBC Morning Report. We start with an update on last night's mass casualty where police were on the scene at Four Cross Junction, that's near Brighton Road and Lower Grays, involving an overturned bus and one motor car. Margaret Stevens, as she was the senior superintendent of police on the scene, and she gave an update where 2 fire tenders, multiple ambulances and the Barbados Defence Force responded.
What we have here is a mass casualty situation which occurred about 15 hours, that's 7:15 to 9. Involved 2 vehicles, a motor omnibus and a motor car. As a result, we had about 25 persons injured, 8 persons reported they're suffering from head, chest, and neck injuries, and they are in the process of being transported to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The others would be assessed on scene, and they also will receive medical attention. Investigations are continuing right now. We will brief you further as the night progresses.
And we will provide more details for you as they become available. Prime Minister Mia Motley is back home from a 4-day working visit to Guyana. The trip covered several issues as CARICOM leaders were looking to advance collaboration among the nations. On arrival at the Grantley Adams International Airport last evening, the Prime Minister gave a synopsis of the achievements.
We looked at the whole issue of access to timber. We looked at the issue of, and have been discussing seriously, the question of combined training. There's some areas in which Guyana's training will be what we need in the area of welding and joinery, etc. And there are other areas in hospitality where we can provide significant opportunities. They want 6,000 hospitality workers trained, and we have already started the process of providing for that. Separate from that, with respect to tourism, we believe that there are opportunities for co-branding, particularly in Europe, where there is an appetite for ecotourism as well as beach tourism still, but secondly, where people have typically longer vacations and therefore the opportunity to visit 2 destinations in a trip is not something that is out of their range. We also looked at the whole issue of international transport, in particular the whole issue of logistics for the movement of cargo. That continues to bedevil this Caribbean region. And Suriname, there are some Surinamese players now that have invested in both air cargo and also maritime assets for cargo. And we are looking to see how we can continue to boost that. Barbados has some issues as it relates to sand. Guyana and Suriname both want limestone, so that there are opportunities to be able to boost the market for the cargo vessels as we go forward.
The Prime Minister also gave an update on discussions surrounding travel and security.
We discussed the question of how do we get the whole issue of reducing the cost of air travel between our countries, because once people start moving, they're going to find the opportunities that governments haven't even thought about. And I believe that therefore is also going to be one of the things you'll see significant progress on over the course of the next few weeks. With respect to the issue of security, we confirmed Guyana will be coming on as a member of the regional security system. That is a significant impetus for us in the Southern Caribbean. Guyana's military is long established and is well equipped, and therefore the ability to have another anchor within the regional security system is something that will enhance the ability of the RSS not only to respond to national security issues, but in particular as we get ready to go into the hurricane season, again, natural disaster events that may take place.
The Prime Minister also undertook an extensive tour of major agriculture products and projects whilst in Guyana and paid a visit to the Brazilian municipality of Bonifim on the border between Brazil and Guyana. When we come back after the break with our COVID-19 updates, we'll take a look at that initiative and of course give you an update on what is happening with COVID-19 on the local scene. There are questions this morning about the move by the Ministry of Health and Wellness to abandon the protocol for routine quarantine, even if you're potentially exposed to COVID-19. It's coming at a time where there have been about a dozen deaths recorded in the past week. Add to that, 2 from the latest dashboard, while the number of new cases continues to fluctuate. Let's get some analysis now from our Dr. Hilary Moore, emergency room physician and morning report contributor. Dr. Moore, good to see you.
Good to be here. How is everyone today?
We're good. Just trying to get a better understanding following yesterday's press briefing from the Ministry of Health and Wellness as well about this situation where routine quarantine, even if you're exposed to COVID-19, is not mandatory under the new protocols. Talk to us about what your thoughts are on hearing this change.
Okay, so remember, I'm speaking for myself. I don't represent any entities. To be honest, I don't understand it. Yes, there's, Omicron, for the majority of people that get infected, are not having severe symptoms. However, we are noticing we had 3 deaths on Monday, 3 deaths on Tuesday, 2 deaths on Wednesday. That is 8 deaths in 3 days. Last week, we had 2 consecutive days where we had 4 deaths each day. It means that even though, yes, for the majority of people that may get this particular variant, it may be mild, we are still having a significant amount of people, to me, that are dying. So then when you say that if you've been exposed, it's not mandatory for you to isolate until you've had a test done that can truly confirm that you don't have the virus, I think is only going to set us up for lack of better word, failure. We're not going to be able to really get control. I do understand also that, we're tired of the restrictions and stuff like that. And I do understand why certain restrictions you may want to ease with time. I don't think that we are in a place right now where we should ease to that extent. By the same accord, I do understand schools need to open at some point during this pandemic. And I do perfectly understand that the children are not necessarily handling the homeschooling as well, and they really need the interaction with their peers and kids of their own age group. However, I think it's amiss to make statements such as, the virus isn't really spread between children, because nurseries have been open, and we know obviously where we have multiple nurseries that have had to close recurrently because of COVID spikes. So I am a little confused as to what the protocols are really going to do to benefit us as a country,
right,
at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried.
Dr. the Most Honorable Corey Ford, he is, of course, in charge of Harrison's Point, the isolation facility there. He spoke about the death rate here in Barbados being lower than other countries across the world, lower generally than the average, the global average. What are your thoughts when you hear that, when we see these deaths that we've had over the past few days?
Exactly. So even if we are lower than the global average, does that mean that we want to put ourselves at risk so that we actually reach the global average? To me, that means that the fact that we are lower than the global average means that there's something that we're obviously doing correct, that we are not reaching the numbers that exist in other places. So why would we then change things to make it that then we can potentially reach those levels? So for that, it means that some of the protocols, once they're adhered to, are actually working. So why now take away something that seems to have been working? Mind you, I still think that our death rate, especially in such a small country, we have 3s, 2s, 4s, are really high for us, especially if you think about it. When we had some of the more virulent strains, or the more deadly strains for lack of a better term, and we didn't have as many deaths, and now we have one that is not supposed to cause as much death, and we're still having quite a significant number, then I don't think that I am really clear on understanding what the purpose is of reducing the restrictions.
Right. Let's look at the numbers, Dr. Moore. You spoke about those numbers. Sorry to cut you there, but look at the numbers, we have been seeing some fluctuations in the numbers of new COVID-19 cases. We were seeing up to 900 plus cases at one point. Now we are seeing in the region of in the 400s. Now to the, this latest dashboard is showing 307. Well, no, this new dashboard is showing that is 272 new cases of COVID-19. And that is one of the lower numbers that we would have seen in recent days. Is it now fair to say that we've passed that peak and that's why these restrictions are being eased?
But how many people were tested?
By this dashboard, it says, let me see, trying to get that number for you.
I think it's 1,600 or something.
Yes, in that region.
Exactly. So what we're showing is that we have less positive cases with doing much less testing. So how significant is that? We're still in the 20-something% positivity, which means that 1 in every 5 people who got tested are positive. But how about the fact that we don't have so many people coming forward to be tested? That is also something we need to factor in. So we're looking at, some people looking just at absolute numbers, but we have to think about our percentage of people being tested. And again, as I had mentioned in previous shows, the fact that people are actually also doing home testing where they could be positive, but then they don't have to, it's not reported anywhere. Is this a true representation of what is going on in our country right now?
And we see Guyana moving to that, in that direction. The health minister there, they're now looking to include home testing in their numbers, but still trying to sort out how that will work. I remember you were quite against home testing because of the attitude of some Barbadians who may test positive and still go out. We had another doctor here saying that it may work if we include them in the figures. What are your thoughts? Have you changed your mind? Can we do home testing and make that work in terms of getting a true number of COVID-19 cases and finding out what it actually is in the community on the ground?
To be fair, I don't think we'll ever get a true number. Because even if we allow home testing, yes, we're going to have people that are going to be responsible enough to report themselves. But then we're also going to have people that are not going to report themselves. That's just a reality. But it is true. If we are allowing home testing, then we should also allow for you to self-report positivities. And therefore, you may see a slight change but it's also dependent on if they truly report the result and then if they report the true result. So there is some part where we as the population and the people are going to have an element of responsibility. I do think it will help, but the reality is we would never get a true picture. And even if people do report their positive results, remember, a lot of people are going to be asymptomatic. They're not going to be tested. So we're still going to have people. So you're never going to really get a true, but adding home testing, now that it's allowed, then that will help, but it still will not give us a full picture, and which we don't expect we're going to get a full picture in a pandemic, but still it would add to an extent to our numbers.
Last quick question before you go, Dr. Moore. We've reached a level of vaccination which could be considered acceptable by world standards, above 60% now. And with the number of people who have actually contracted COVID-19 here in Barbados, are we out of the woods, and is enough of the population vaccinated either with the 2 shots and the booster, or just by generally catching COVID and recovering for us to just ease the protocols?
Right. So remember, we are only just about 55% fully vaccinated. The 69% is those that have had a first dose, if I remember, of the eligible population. But the total population, we're only at 54.9%. You're correct with the amount of people that have been infected. We have more people right now, more than it has antibodies to the virus at this moment. But the studies are showing where when you get the virus and you produce your antibodies, that level is not lasting as long as we would like it to. Whether or not with the new Omicron variant, is it going to produce antibodies that will last a lot longer? We don't know. We still have to wait for that information to come in. But I still think that still reducing protocols right now, especially if you're saying that we had one of the lower death rates, may not be the best thing at this time with certain things. But unfortunately, the way a pandemic works, we're literally living in the fishbowl. I guess we're going to see what happens as time goes by. But I think that we all bear our own responsibility in controlling this pandemic. And even if it is not mandatory, but you have been exposed and you have the ability where you can stay home away from your coworkers and others until you can get your test done, I still think that would be an advisable move, even if it's not mandatory.
I want 30 more seconds of your time because I have to get this in. There is a bad flu stirring, according to reports. A bad flu where the symptoms are pretty similar to COVID-19, but it is actually, the symptoms could be a bit worse in some cases. What are you hearing about this, if you can tell me?
No, I've actually heard quite a few people have been telling me that they've had this really bad flu. They've been tested for COVID-19. They've actually had 1 or 2 tests, which have been negative, but they've had a lot of symptoms. What I'm finding with a lot of them, they're getting a lot of what would be the Omicron symptoms, such as the vomiting and diarrhea, and that is concerning. So I think what everyone needs to do right now, especially the fact Omicron, even though we still have the other strains, as well as this flu, are giving so much vomiting and diarrhea, I think everyone should really have in their little kits at home rehydration salts, which is something that you mix with water. It has in a lot of the electrolytes you lose with the vomiting and the diarrhea. I think everyone should have some Gravol at home tablets, as well as the suppositories to go into the bottom. And I think we need to be careful once you start having symptoms, because you don't know whether it's the flu or whether or not it's COVID-19. You need to really try to protect yourself and others around you. Still try to self-isolate and try to make sure you stay well hydrated, you get the rest and stuff like that, to try to fight whichever virus it is. And the safest thing also to do is to also get tested, because you may need other type of interventions if it is COVID-19. So yeah, it does exist and it is scary, and people are actually feeling quite ill because of this flu too.
We are always, time is always too short when it comes to talking to you. It's still so much more to talk about. We'll try to catch up with you next week to get more details on what is going on with this flu and of course COVID-19 as well. You be safe until next time.
You too. Bye everyone.
Dr. Hilary Moore, emergency room physician and morning report contributor. Let's look at those stats now as far as COVID-19 is concerned here in Barbados. 2 more elderly persons, as we would have mentioned, have lost their lives to COVID-19. A 76-year-old fully vaccinated male and an 89-year-old unvaccinated female died from the viral illness. This brings the number of deaths from COVID-19 here in Barbados to 307. Meanwhile, the Best Dos Santos Public Health Lab identified 272 new cases of COVID-19. That is from 1,648 tests conducted, including 125 males and 147 females. There were 125 people in isolation facilities, while 4,041 people were in home isolation. Guyana's Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, says people can now use COVID-19 self-testing kits to conduct COVID-19 tests at home. If tested positive, persons there are required to report their results to the Ministry of Health, but there are concerns about how the government will monitor persons using these self-testing kits.
Another option to test for COVID-19 is being rolled out in Guyana. Persons who want to know their COVID status in a shorter period can now use the at-home self-testing kits. These test kits are being imported by private companies and pharmacies and have been approved for sale here. Persons who use these kits will get their COVID results within 15 minutes. Minister of Health Dr. Frank Anthony, however, said he does not believe that many persons would use these kits. The health minister spoke during his daily COVID update on Wednesday.
Self-testing is a way for a person who is at home to know whether or not they have COVID. Right now in Guyana, we're introducing that, and there are some people who would buy the kits and would follow the guidance. But it's not widespread, and therefore we don't see a big challenge. Now, with self-testing, it's a way of just, if you have any concern, to check to see whether you're positive or negative. If somebody would have used a self-testing kit and they're positive, they should report it so that we have them in our account.
It must be noted that the self-testing concept will not be accepted for entry into Guyana.
Our travel requirements are very explicit. We are accepting an antigen test from a reputable institution where it's done, or a PCR test. There is something now called a rapid PCR, and we are also accepting that.
That's the Health Minister in Guyana, Dr. Frank Anthony. We'll take a break here. We got some more news coming your way. Back to news from the Prime Minister's tour of Guyana. Prime Minister Mornin Motley undertook an extensive tour of major agriculture projects there whilst in Guyana and paid a visit to the Brazilian municipality of Bonfim on the border between Brazil and Guyana. Our Kishmar St. Just reports.
During a tour led by Guyana's Minister of Agriculture, Zulfikar Mustafa, Prime Minister Mornin Motley visited a cultivation plot where a consortium of Guyanese investors is currently cultivating corn and soybean. The team then moved on to the Liberty Livestock and Cattle Ranch and a farm at Mon Repos. That site is where 5 model shade houses are being built as part of the President's Agriculture and Innovation Entrepreneurship Program. Earlier, Ms. Motley visited Region 9 where she met with residents. Upon arrival in Letem, she was handed keys to the town by the mayor. During the tour to Bonfim, Prime Minister Motley was joined by her Guyanese counterpart, Mark Phillips. The towns on the border cooperate in a number of areas, including agriculture. She also met with the mayor of Bonfim in the state of Roraima. The meeting was also attended by Barbados' Minister of Agriculture, Indarweer, Guyana's Minister of International Affairs, Hugh Todd, the Governor of Region 9, the Mayor of Letem, as well as several other Brazilian officials. Kishmar St. Just, CBC News.
Sporting news now. Barbados Pride skipper Craig Brathwaite completed a tremendous innings yesterday as he fell 24 runs short of a triple century in leading the Pride to a 193-run first innings lead over Jamaica Scorpions. That's on day 3 of their CWI 4-day match at Kensington Oval. Resuming the day on 243 for 2 in reply to the Scorpions' first innings score of 328, the Pride declared on 521 for 8, that lead being 193. Brathwaite has moved his overnight score from 137 to 276. That included 18 fours. Now, Brathwaite, Raymond Reefer, who had resumed on 55, was dismissed for 71, while Jonathan Carter made his second consecutive half-century, scoring 68. Patrick Harty took 5 for 111 for the Scorpions. Sean Green reports on the early action.
Raymond Reefer started things off in an aggressive mood, striking Merchant back over his head. That's 6, man. Gordon to Brathwaite on 146, and he got up tall and guided this one down to the third-man boundary for 4 runs, bringing up his 150 in the process. His partner Reefer would soon depart, trapped on the back foot for 71. Barbados losing their first wicket of the day with the score on 273. Jonathan Carter came out next and started to flow, driving sweetly through the covers for 4. Carter, you beauty, one tossed up and spanked back over the bowler's head for yet another 6. Carter still on the go, on the back foot, cutting like a tailor through point for 4 more. And he continued to be aggressive, and why not on a pitch like this? Launching this one off his pads and into orbit like the Voyager spacecraft, high over square leg, beating the fielder in the deep. That's 6 runs. Brathwaite on 196 strokes that one through the covers to bring up his 16th boundary and his first double 100 for Barbados. Congrats to the Barbados skipper. Carter reached 68 before this happened, going for the sweep, and the appeal upheld by the umpire, and the left-hander departs with the score at 415 for 3. Shane Dowich came out to contribute to the batting clinic, slug sweeping Harty over mid-wicket for 4. He went to tea at 10, and his captain on 234 not out. Barbados 442 for 4. Sean Green, CBC Sports.
And remember, you can check out live coverage on Radio 94.7, the best 24/7 from 10 this morning. Time now for a look at the weather. It's nice and cool on the outside, feeling like 24 degrees Celsius, and it's 24.5 degrees Celsius. It's fair as well. The relative humidity stands at 70%, the barometric pressure 1013.1 millibars, and those winds are coming out of the east at around 30 kilometers per hour. We'll get a low tide this morning at 13 minutes to 11. There will be a high tide at 7 minutes after 5 in the afternoon. Those seas are still moderate to rough in open water. Swells are peaking at around the 2.5 meter mark right now, but expected to increase. Small craft operators and sea bathers, please exercise caution. Today in Barbados, it will be partly sunny with a few brief isolated light showers. And tonight, we'll get a mix of clear skies and clouds with a few brief isolated light showers. And here's a quick look at the international weather forecast. Pretty cold in Montreal there. And that's it for this edition of the CBC Morning Report. I'll see you at 7 with our headline news. I'm Shane Seeley. Up next, our Pearson Bowen with Mornin Barbados.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, 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 morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning, Barbados, good morning. Good morning to you. Good morning, morning, Barbados, good morning. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Morning to you.
Indeed, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today. Today is Friday, February the 18th, 2022. You know I love a Friday. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for waking up with us right here at Morning Barbados and for joining us on your TV screens, on your YouTube stream or your Facebook stream as well. Bonjour, ça va? Here's hoping you have a great and a wonderful weekend indeed. Now today we'll introduce you to a man from Grenada who's been living here for a little while now. Tony Grisette is one of his favorites. He'll join us and share his latest music release. We'll also be meeting a Bajan Afar, who is the activist in residence. My first thought was, oh, you're the rebel in residence, aren't you? But he'll talk to us a little bit about his journey in the UK so far and the things about which he's most passionate. We'll also today be talking ahead of a big announcement by NAPSAC to the chairman of the NAPSAC committee. She'll join us just before they make the big announcement, and you will see it right here on TV8, so look out for that as we get ready for that sporting action through the primary schools on the island. We'll also today be taking a look at what's happening with the Barbados Defence Force operating under a new focus now as we are now a new republic. And we'll be joined by a member of the Defence Force there to talk about their new look, their new strategy, their new everything. We'll hear too about what's happening in the Parish of St. Peter as they prepare to celebrate and mark the activities in their Parish month. But I want to get started in the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts. Can't wait to meet our guests this morning. As you know, all week long, that's what we've been doing, sharing with you the exciting programs that fall within that category. Good to meet today Russell Watson. He's going to talk about film, and my friend Dr. Yvonne Weeks looking at creative arts. Good morning, both of you.
Good morning, Pearson. Hi.
Good morning. Morning. Yvonne, long time no see. So
I was just saying the same thing.
Indeed. You know, we earlier in the, was it this year? I think it was. We met a guest from Montserrat. And as fate would have it, I said to her, you know, you remind me so much of Yvonne Weeks. And did both of you know each other?
Indeed.
That is wonderful. That is great. So, the exciting programs and work of the Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts, and I mean, it is so rich with energy and opportunity. Let's talk from your perspective, Dr. Weeks, about what study within this faculty can do for the human and for our society.
Well, the program that I'm going to speak about is the MA in Creative Arts. I have been coordinating it for several years. It's the program that you can do after you have your first degree in the arts, although sometimes we do accept people who don't actually have a first degree in the arts, but who have an impressive and extensive arts portfolio because they've been working as a hobbyist or as a part-timer. So the MA in Creative Arts is really preparing us for two particular categories that are of utmost importance to us, especially now we're in the Republic: arts education and arts entrepreneurship. In arts education, we are preparing students who are going to be able to be part of the critical discussions and discourse about what we do in education within the context of film and dance and theater, creative writing, photography, etc. So we have an MA in Creative Arts Education, and that particular program prepares students who are going to be like assisting with our policymakers in education in the arts, who are going to be the critical voices that will engage in how we develop curriculum, how we teach students in the arts. And so agencies like the Caribbean Examinations Council, like all other ministries of education, cultural departments, are going to benefit from the competencies that these students bring. Critical thinking competencies, knowing how to work collaboratively, and knowing how our arts from the Caribbean have informed where we are at this point and what we need to do to take us to the next level. In the entrepreneurship, obviously that feeds directly into the orange economy, into looking at the reproduction of art, the distribution of art, the critiquing of art, and the marketing of the arts. So that is a MA program, which is a year-long program. It's 36 credits. It's pretty intense, and it actually ends with the students doing a very large creative project, usually of something that is of personal interest to them, but that we hope will resonate with the larger creative community.
Though it's intense, it's also quite rewarding, not just to the individual, but to the society as a whole as well. And particularly as you talk about critical thinking, you know, that in itself, the whole act of critical thinking, the whole technique to be able to do so is so vital because it interlinks with everything we do. And so for those who are pursuing their masters in another area, another focus, a master's also in the Faculty of Creative Arts, it's also going to be a wonderful adjunct, don't you think?
Well, because we also have to look at our social and cultural history. And, you know, it is quite unfortunate and quite sad. Recently, I was looking for materials to assist the Caribbean Examination Council with resources. And, you know, if you type in carnival or Caribbean theater, it's almost impossible to find anything that that we can use to access. So it means that creatives have a lot of work to do to use the very tools that have been made outside by the metropole. We need to be able to access them. And so in the MA Creative Arts, there's a high emphasis on looking at some of the important Caribbean issues, problems, things that we need to really face and not keep stigmatized or taboo. And so a lot of the creative work that they produce is actually addresses those kinds of issues, so that we can have our own archives, our own set of materials that those coming after, especially students who are studying the art, can say, let me type in Russell Watson. Wow, there's this film. Let me type in Rainey Demerson. Wow, there are all these articles. Let me type in Louise Bennett. It's really hard to find material, but we know the material exists. So I encourage the students to do that in their creative projects.
You're absolutely right. And Russell, it naturally flows to you because now you are also a part of that person who creates for that repository. So let's talk a little bit about how when one engages with the culture, creative and performing arts faculty, we can benefit from what you do there at the University of the West Indies.
Well, I think, first of all, the formation of the faculty is a really special moment. For those of you that don't know, the new Faculty of Culture, Creative and Performing Arts is an amalgamation of the Creative Arts program at the EBCCI and the Cultural Studies program that was formerly under the Humanities faculty. So what that means is that there's now a built-in relationship between a kind of diligent cultural awareness and analysis and the art that is being made through the program. So I think what that says, like many things that have happened over the course of the public discussion, is that we are starting to recognize the centrality of art within the culture and how those two things interact with each other. And the students that come through the program, I think all of us that are on faculty there at the moment, are keenly aware of how important it is for them to understand not only how the relationship between those two elements has progressed, but the fact that, I guess most importantly, what their role in the development of that relationship is.
So in producing film, relevance, accuracy, relatability, a whole host of things would flow naturally, I suppose, in that film. And so understanding the context and pretext and all of those kinds of things is where the faculty really helps. Because if we know history, we're better able to represent who we are and what we are, even though we may get fanciful from time to time. The area of film, though, it is, I suppose, not simply open to those who sit behind the camera. There's so many ancillary services that go into making film. Are all of those skills taught and honed in the faculty?
Well, we do try to have a holistic program. So I think students who come through the program, it is a BFA program. So the responsibility of the program is to give them a very broad immersion into the art form. So students are get access to directing, writing, production management, camera, audio. There is an acting course that's not in our department. The acting course is carried through the theater department. But because we're all one campus, of course, our students are interacting and relating to each other. So those acting students who are focused on acting usually end up in front of the camera for a film project.
Because it's new, folks, there's a lot to learn about the Faculty of Culture, Performing and Creative Arts. And these two who you see on your screen are very well placed to be able to guide you. So get online to kphil.edu. The name just went completely from my head. Yvonne, I'm getting old. I can't believe it. But surely there are going to be some tasters today, and I'm sure my production crew will help me here. There are going to be some tasters today because today there's going to be at 6 o'clock, students speak, looking at Rihanna and identities, negotiating bodies and being in the new republic. That is one exciting moment. We can connect for that as well. And at 8 o'clock this evening, there's a cinema night featuring student-produced film via YouTube as well. How many films do you think we'll be able to see this evening on cinema night?
Actually, I believe there.
I don't know.
I do have that information here. I believe it's three films.
There are three films. All right, so we can
There's
join
another
you.
event as well.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Pearson.
Go ahead.
There is another event this morning at 10 in which the students speak about the role of the artist in the New Republic. And that's at 10 a.m. this morning.
All right, so a lot happening, but folks, you can go to the website and our Facebook, FCCPA UWI Cave Hill, that's on Facebook, or go to the website cavehill.uwi.edu. That's it, cavehill.uwi.edu to get to know a whole lot more. But most of all, engage, whether it's in the degree program or the master's program at the University of the West Indies. It is rich in our culture, it is rich in your experience, and most of all, it redounds to the benefit of our society. These two can guide you further when you connect with the University of the West Indies. Dr. Yvonne Weiss, good to see you again. All the best going forward always. And Russell Watson, thank you so much for joining us. Good to meet you. Have a good day, folks.
Nice to meet you as
Have
well.
a good day. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Morning Barbados continues right after this.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're just about 12 minutes now to go to the hour of 7 o'clock here this Friday morning. You know, there are many times we grow up with things happening around us and we completely forgot when they started. Do you know that it was in August 1979 that the Barbados Defence Force was originally established? Did you know that? Did you know that, or did you even remember that? Because we get so accustomed, we forget. And so we want to look at that right now with Lieutenant Commander Fernella Cordell, who is a Staff Officer Strategy and Policy with the Barbados Defence Force, as they look at the new way forward. Good morning to you, Lieutenant Commander.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
I'm quite fine, thank you. And how are you?
I'm doing well. You know, we've interacted on the telephone. Now we put a face to the voice. It is good to see you indeed. Barbados Defence Force, we've grown so accustomed to the great work you do, but there are three elements to the Defence Force which we do not know about. And you know that. That's the regular service, the reserve force, and the cadet force. Why those three, and what does the Barbados Defence Force, what's your role and function within general society?
Well, our role and function, first thing, is to support the government's mandate, whether it be strictly on matters of security or things to assist the civil powers. Another big role over the years that we have adapted and we continue to be with is youth development. And out of that, we have the Barbados Cadet Corps being our youth arm. The Cadet Corps, established centuries ago, we'd have to say, and first established using teachers from the schools. And when the Barbados Regiment, then becoming the Barbados Defence Force, was formed, they became our youth arm. They are still managed by officers, permanent headquarters administration officers at their headquarters, Cherry Tree Cottage, over at the garrison, and with links at all the schools. PSI is assigned to the schools, and teachers usually who become cadet officers and who direct the children, who, you know, for discipline and youth, developing them as young, civic-minded adults.
You know, oftentimes a lot of people don't know what it is the Defence Force does. We see you at mass casualty events, we see you at parades and those kinds of things. But little did they know that you have responsibility for territorial and internal security. Let's paint the broader picture so that people get a sense that you're not just a group of people in uniform, but you actually have functions that you perform day in, day out.
Yes, and well, everyone knows my parent unit, the Barbados Coast Guard. And we are charged with maritime security within the maritime domain. We have powers under the Customs Act, the Immigration Act, and become the police at sea past the territorial limit. On the territorial, the terra firma side, the land side, we have our land forces. Land forces are the ones that would wear the green camouflage. They now will do internal security, where the security of the ports of entry or key point installations and military assistance to the civil ministries and civil powers, the police, the fire service, they fall under that part. Embracing everyone or overarching everything is our committed response to regional and regional matters in terms of humanitarian assistance and disaster response. So hurricanes, you saw with the recent ashfall, those type of things, we are there. And out of that emerging area, we have a broadening group within the reserves. And that's part of our strategic thrust, to expand the reserve force to be able to better counter some of these threats and to be able to respond much better. The skills required for the HADR can be had in the field medical team, which is comprised of several professionals, doctors and nurses, artisans, technicians, the whole gamut of people. And that is where we are pushing right now, to increase the reserves, to capture more of those people who may want to give back to Barbados, who may want to contribute to our response efforts.
So how does one qualify to be a part of that? Do I have to be ready fit to handle a gun? Do I have to go through all of the tactical training and so to be a member of the reserves?
Not exactly, but we can make you into what we want you to be. First things first would be to make the application, and if you're skilled, any of the skills that I just mentioned, and we recently had a publication made, a call to reserve nurses, doctors, artisans, and even if you don't have a skill, because you can learn and acquire a skill while you're there. And you make the application, we do put you through a set of tests to determine your suitability. There's some psychometric assessments. There will be physical assessment because if you do have a comorbidity or something that may put you into a higher risk, you may not be considered for entry into the force or in anything that may be too active and put you and us in precarious situations. We do have a full-time recruiting which starts in July to be comprised of 100 recruits, and we'll put them through 4 months of training. Noting that because we're living in this COVID environment, there will be in a bubble, and we're about to pass out a set of recruits now tomorrow afternoon, and they and their instructors, they were in their bubble and were able to complete the training.
So these essentially become the first set of recruits since we've become a republic. That
Yes,
must in itself be quite significant.
Yes, and not only since becoming a republic, but it's also a testimony that training can continue, recruiting can continue, life can continue with COVID, as long as the protocols are maintained and you are careful and maintain your distancing, hand sanitizing, and of course there was regular testing.
As with everything else, we're all called upon to constantly reinvent ourselves, to strategically reposition and so forth. Let's talk about that. The future, what you see to be, or the foresees to be the future or modernization of the Barbados Defence Force. What can you tell us?
Well, it's not business as usual. We are in the middle of a cultural shift, and then we've also got technological advances and challenges and threats that come with that. So the modern force is meant to be adaptable. And as Barbados has shown, be a forerunner, we've entered into the metaverse, and we are looking as part of our reserve again to build out that capability to act in the cyber domain, to bridge the links between public, government, regional, and international regulatory bodies, and to be able to at least maintain a better sense of security for our people in adapting and bringing forward our model. The aim would be to recruit persons with the skills that we do need, whether regular or reserve, as well as retain them. Retaining them will mean that we have things that they find to be attractive. So we know that there are some social programs that we're looking to bring to the fore. And of course, there's our interest in youth development. Our people are our strongest resource. And if we start with the youth, and we can build out for the future, and not just the future for the BDF, but the future for Barbados, and continue with our contribution. We would have heard the Prime Minister speak about our upcoming greater involvement with the Barbados Youth Advanced Corps, and that in itself is not a foreign concept to us, but we certainly will be looking to give them more than just training to drill, but the other skills, embrace that, having them embrace what it means to be an upright citizen, and point them down the road where there needs to be interventions and to get them back on track as necessary.
Indeed. So there are many areas in which we're called to serve our country,
Yes.
and to stand up in support of what the country means in defense of our country as well. So the strategic positioning of the BDF is always ongoing. You know what that is, and so that's exactly what you're seeking to do. Fortunately, with the advancement of our becoming a republic, you don't have to change your name, but that's a good thing. I know you're also looking at working your colors. You've got new uniforms, and a whole host of things are happening there. So it's quite exciting a time to be a part of the Barbados Defence Force. So for those who are watching who feel themselves fit enough and want to step up to serve, remind us of the recruitment process so that we can see them in numbers coming and giving up service to the country?
Well, first you make your application to the headquarters, and once it gets there, the staff officer and responsible for human resource management, they go through them and we start the process. You go through a series of interviews, verbal, over the telephone, and then in-person ones. We will put you through polygraph testing as part of the requirement for security forces, as well as drug testing. We do have a tattoo policy, but persons should not be deterred about that, because it is not that you're not required, or we don't want you to come with tattoos, but at the same time, we don't want them to be visible in uniform. And we are a uniform group of men and women. So we are inviting all persons still to make their applications. We don't want to discriminate, and females, males, we accept, we embrace you. Religion is also not a factor. We do take you also. You go through your usual physical health assessments, medical, dental, eye, and then we test your cognitive skills, your intelligence. Preferably, we have been asking for 6 CXCs, math and English 6 CXCs for officers, higher degrees, or math and English at the minimum for enlisted members.
So folks, your nation needs you. Step right up indeed. Send in your application. Lieutenant Commander Fernella Cordell, as always, thank you so much for joining with us. The training sessions are, 4 months in the bubble, and coming out to you will be a better person for you. You saw the faces on the smiles on the faces of the forces, members of the force, and we love to see you guys on parade. It is beautiful to behold indeed, and so you too can be a part of all of that. Now don't forget, because it's COVID, you need to get your application in soonest so that you are entered into the bubble, and then tomorrow's passing out parade is the first cohort coming through the training through the bubble. And what time, by the way, is that ceremony so that we can pay keen attention?
It will be held at the historic Garrison St. Anne's Fort, beginning at 4 p.m.
Great. Tomorrow at 4, we'll be celebrating the success of those who made it through the bubble and made it into the force indeed for the very first time. Lieutenant Commander, thank you so much, Cordell. It's so good to see you, and it's so good to be able to interact with you. She's extremely efficient, and so we wanted to also celebrate that fact, and I want to tell the whole world about it too as well. So all the best going forward. I hope that you receive quite a few requests for recruitment, and that you're able to process people for that many Barbadians step up to the cause to support our country. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much, and do have a wonderful day, Barbados.
Likewise. Lieutenant Commander Fernella Cordell of the Barbados Defence Force. We're taking a break right here. We're coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Here's your headline news for this Friday, February the 18th. We're getting more details about that major accident last night at the Four Cross junction of Brighton Road and Lower Grays involving an overturned bus and one motorcar, which has left 25 people nursing injuries. 2 fire tenders, multiple ambulances, the roving response team and the Barbados Defence Force responded. Our Crystal Hoyt was on the scene and she followed this report.
Police, medics, fire personnel and the Barbados Defence Force have all responded to a mass casualty here at the Four Cross junction of Brighton Road and Lower Grays. The accident, which occurred at 7:15 p.m., has resulted in 25 people being injured.
What we have here is a mass casualty situation involving 2 vehicles, a motor omnibus and a motor car. As a result, we had about 25 persons injured. 8 persons reported they're suffering from head, chest and neck injuries, and they are in the process of being transported to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. The others would be assessed on scene and they also will receive medical attention.
These investigations are ongoing. Crystal Hoyt, CBC News.
Prime Minister Myanmar Motley is back at home from a 4-day working visit to Guyana. The trip covered several issues as CARICOM leaders were looking to advance collaboration among the nations. On her arrival at the Grantley Adams International Airport last evening, the Prime Minister gave this synopsis of the achievements of the trip.
We looked at the whole issue of access to timber. We looked at the issue of, and have been discussing seriously, the question of combined training. There's some areas in which Guyana's training will be what we need in the area of welding and joinery, etc. And there are other areas in hospitality where we can provide significant opportunities. They want 6,000 hospitality workers trained, and we have already started the process of providing for that. Separate from that, with respect to tourism, we believe that there are opportunities for co-branding, particularly in Europe, where there is one, an appetite for ecotourism as well as beach tourism still, but secondly, where people have typically longer vacations and therefore the opportunity to visit 2 destinations in a trip is not something that is out of their range. We also looked at the whole issue of international transport, in particular the whole issue of logistics for the movement of cargo. That continues to bedevil this Caribbean region. And Suriname, there are some Surinamese players now that have invested in both air cargo and also maritime assets for cargo. And we are looking to see how we can continue to boost that. Barbados has some issues as it relates to sand. Guyana and Suriname both want limestone, so that there are opportunities to be able to boost the market for the cargo vessels as we go forward.
A bad flu is reportedly stirring here in Barbados, which some Barbadians are mistaking for COVID-19. It does share some similar symptoms with the Omicron variant, which predominantly affects the upper respiratory tract. Emergency room physician Dr. Hilary Moore confirms to the Morning Report that many people have been complaining about the severe symptoms of this flu.
I've actually heard quite a few people have been telling me that they've had this really bad flu. They've been tested for COVID-19. They've actually had 1 or 2 tests which have been negative, but they've had a lot of symptoms. What I'm finding with a lot of them, they're getting a lot of what would be the Omicron symptoms, such as the vomiting and diarrhea, and that is concerning. So I think what everyone needs to do right now, especially the fact Omicron, even though we still have the other strains, as well as this flu, are giving so much vomiting and diarrhea, I think everyone should really have in their little kits at home rehydration salts, which is something that you mix with water. It has in a lot of the electrolytes you lose with the vomiting and the diarrhea. I think everyone should have some Gravol at home tablets, as well as the suppositories to go into the bottom. And I think we need to be careful. Once you start having symptoms, because you don't know whether it's the flu or whether or not it's COVID-19, you need to really try to protect yourself and others around you. Still try to self-isolate and try to make sure you stay well hydrated, you get the rest and stuff like that, to try to fight whichever virus it is.
Meanwhile, COVID-19 has claimed the lives of two more Barbadians. A 76-year-old fully vaccinated male and an 89-year-old unvaccinated female died from the viral illness yesterday. That brings the number of deaths here in Barbados from COVID-19 to 307. Meanwhile, the Best Dos Santos Public Health Laboratory identified 272 new COVID-19 cases. That's from 1,648 tests conducted, 125 males and 147 females. There were 125 people in isolation facilities, while 4,041 people were in home isolation. The total number of fully vaccinated people here in Barbados now stands at 148,678. And some good news on the COVID-19 front. Barbados has received another batch of Pfizer COVID-19 vaccines from the U.S. government. The gift of 129,600 doses was accepted yesterday by the Minister of State in the Ministry of Health, Dr. Sonia Brown, and the Minister of State in the Ministry of Foreign Trade and Business Development, Sandra Husbands, along with the Chief Medical Officer, the Most Honorable Dr. Kenneth George, at the Grantley Adams International Airport. Public Affairs Officer with the U.S. Embassy of Bridgetown, Larry Soka, speaking on behalf of the U.S. Ambassador to Barbados, Linda Tagliatella, said it was part of over 200,000 vaccines that were donated to the Caribbean this week. And that's our headline news for this Friday. I'm Shane Seeley. It's back over to you, Pearson. After the break, you'll hear more from Pearson right here on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
We're approaching 12 after 7. Let's get a good look at our good decision of today. Our good decision of the day says daily self-reflection, all part of our 5 daily habits of the ultra successful. One of the reasons why most people don't become successful despite their ambition is their lack of self-reflection. They hardly take the time to step back from their work to take a top-down perspective of their progress, actions, and direction. This way, they fail to identify certain blind spots and limiting beliefs and fail to learn from their past mistakes. Self-reflection is one of the most productive habits, even though you don't necessarily produce or create anything. Rather, it helps you to become more effective and take higher quality actions because you take the time to create clarity on your best next actions, learn from past mistakes, and identify limiting beliefs that have been holding you back. So sometimes you need to stop at the end of the day perhaps and do some self-reflecting, have some self-reflection, have that top-down look at some of your actions, your processes, your thoughts, because the lack thereof can lead you into actions that you may not necessarily have positive outcomes from. So if you want to be ultra successful, let today be one of those days that you consider having a daily self-reflection. We're taking that break right here. We're coming back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
You know, Matt Fingal would say, NAPSAC is back, baby. And so, with the children responding and returning to school from Monday, NAPSAC is on. We're meeting today with the new chairman of NAPSAC, Janelle Denny. She joins us now. Good morning to you, Miss Denny.
Good morning, Pearson. Good morning, Barbados.
So it's good to see you back. We're now moving softly back into being regular activity as resumed. And so NAPSAC is one of those activities that will be resumed, but it's slightly different this year. What can you tell us about what's different about NAPSAC this year?
Well, first thing is that we're celebrating our 20th anniversary, which is a very significant milestone. And we would have conceptualized 7 activities to celebrate that milestone. We've already completed 2, and today we're on to the 3rd, our zonal draw and new icon reveal. I can give you a little bit of information on that and then speak about the other activities.
Sure.
With respect to the new icons, we are moving from a 5-zone structure to 8, because our existing icons in terms of our zones are the Obadeli Thompson zone, the Andrea Blackett zone, Patsy Callender, Anton Norris, and James Wedderburn. So we're going to be welcoming 3 new persons to our family today. And then because of that, we are having to do a random draw for all of the 80 plus schools that are part of the NAPSAC family to go into the zones today.
So let's see, you're adding 3 more icons today, so we'll now have 8 zones at the end of the day, and then there's a reshuffle to see who lands within what particular zone. And
exactly.
You don't want to reveal right now for Morning Barbados viewers who those 3 new icons will be, or you're holding?
No, please. No, you can tune in on Channel 8 a little later from 10:30, because CBC will be carrying it live to Barbados. So we will also be having it streamed on our MRD Barbados page, because we have been partnering with the Ministry of Education's MRD department this year.
Yes.
So you'll be able to follow wherever you are.
So in other words, wait until 10:30, you'll hear more about it. That's
Wait
all right.
about 10:30, maybe around 11 o'clock. But
Okay,
yes,
no problem. Join at 10:30 for sure.
Everyone will have been revealed then.
We'll be patient. But whoever they are all sporting icons.
Yes, of
so for sure, we do know that whoever they are, they're icons that we know in track and field.
Yes, please.
All right. And will there be icons who are relatively younger than who we have already?
Well, we have a mix because we have to remember that our older icons, they have also given a lot of great service to this nation. So we can't just forget anyone because of age.
Okay.
So it's about the merit in terms of your performance and what you would have done through the years.
Now listen, I'm trying to whittle down to see if I could figure it out before 10:30 this morning.
I know.
So no problem. These are all sporting icons as we know them. So we'll now have 8 zones. When you're done with the 8 zones, you've comprised them. Can you give us a sense of what else is happening? Because, you know, when we think of NAPSAC, we think of we're heading to the stadium. We're going to shout and jump and do bad for those who represent our schools. Yes. So is that a part of the plan this year, that we will eventually be able to support our athletes on track and field?
Yes, that is the plan. But I'll take you a little ways back, because what we as an executive committee would have recognized, because our children would have spent the first term in an online environment, they would not have had the normal general conditioning that is required to go into that specific competition phase training. So we've had to take a step back because we recognize fitness may be an issue. So the next activity is something very new and novel to what we usually do. And plus it comes within our 20th anniversary, so it fits well. We have conceptualized a Get Moving Festival for our students, where what we're going to do from a centralized location, which is going to be at the Willie Gymnasium, we're going to have a series of fitness instructors that will go through some workouts and so on with the children on a daily basis in their zones. And once we broadcast it to the various schools, we would have conceptualized in a face-to-face environment within the school, or if the children were still going to be online, because whatever would have happened with respect to the COVID environment, we wanted to be able to reach our children. So in the case that the children are back in school, the PE teachers in the various schools will choose a particular area where the athletes will come out and be able to view the broadcast, which is going to be sent to the schools via Zoom, so that they can interact with the fitness instructors. Also have NAPSAC officials at each school, because, you know, with technology, things can happen. So we want to make sure that whatever the case, everything keeps going, keeps moving. And it is a case where we want that the children get back into getting active, promoting healthy lifestyle, because we know that the fitness may be an issue for some. Everyone would not have been living that increased sedentary lifestyle, but we have to make it fair across the board for all of our children. So that's why we wanted to start with this particular activity. Like I said, it's something new for us. We are excited to see how it goes in terms of the response. We're actually finalizing, partnering with the Ministry of Health, because they're going to be giving a lucky school some fitness equipment. At the end, we're going to have a little random draw on each day, and the schools that will be participating within that zone will have that opportunity to win some physical education equipment for their school. And then we move on. That is going to be held March 14th to 18th and 21st to 23rd, because of the 8 days. Then we move on into May, because we want to give the teachers that time to get the children organized, to get them settled and in that training mode. Then we move on to May 8th, where we're going to be having an awareness walk for our special education athletes. Over the years, we have always had special education competing within the NAPSAC championships, and people would not know because we don't say this is a special education athlete or anything like that. So it's an inclusive program, but we want to highlight the contributions that they would have made. So we have organized a special awareness walk for them. In terms of the other schools, we will allow for them to do it virtually if they choose to. But then we're also implementing some fitness challenges, which again will help with the conditioning of the athletes and having fun, getting moving, getting active, where the fitness challenges will be themed according to our 8 icons. So so in terms of, Oba was a sprinter. So it's a case where we will fashion that particular challenge where activities that usually sprinters would do in terms of their preparation and so on. James Reddemer was a quarter miler, so his would be a little different because of the conditioning factor of quarter milers versus a sprinter, the 100 sprinter, and so on. So we want to, like I said, engage our children first in the fitness aspect, because in order to be a good athlete, your fitness base has to be strong. That is the development there. That is the base. So we're looking at that then to build now in terms of what you are asking about. Our main event, which is going to be May 10th to 13th in the form of a cross-country relay championships. Why we have chosen to do that is because, as I said earlier, we usually have a general conditioning term, which is our first term. But our second term is basically going to be our general conditioning term, or our first term. So it would make sense in terms of the long-term athlete development to be able, once they have been with their teachers and so on, to then allow for that aspect for their competitive activity, as opposed to the normal activity that we usually do. Because we want to ease our children back into competition mode. We are trying to balance that fitness base with that competitive juice that they have. So with the cross-country relay, we have conceptualized for our under 9s a mixed relay where you have a 4x4, 2 boys, 2 girls. That will be an interesting setup in terms of who runs against each other and so on. And then our on the 11s and on the 13s. Our on the 11s will do a 4x6 and the on the 13s a 4x800. So we think that this is doable for the children. Like I said, we're easing them back in, and that event is going to be held at the Usain Bolt complex.
Well, we're going to be there. We are going to be there, and we want to give full support to our children and to full support to yourself as well, you and your committee of NAPSAC, as you begin to get sports back going with our children again. We got to leave it there. But for sure, this morning, folks, we're going to tune into CBC TV8. That's when we will know who those 3 additional icons will be, and we'll get a sense of who falls into those now 8 zones as we get ready for more and more and more. And as the more and more unfold, we'll bring you back, Janelle, to talk to us and to remind us how we can engage with it as well. Thank you so much. Much success with the year going forward. And thank you so much for coming to Morning Barbados to tell us about it.
You are most welcome.
Indeed. Janelle Denny is her name. She's the chairman of NAPSAC. It all starts, folks, from today. We'll take a break right here, and we're coming right back with more on Morning Barbados.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
Let's meet now the chairman of the St. Peter's Parish Independence Committee. His name is Greg Agard Belgrave. Greg, good morning to you.
Good morning to you as well, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us on Morning Barbados. When is Parish Month for St. Peter?
Our Parish Month is February.
This month?
Yes, it is.
So now that we are in the month of February, halfway through it, literally, what have you guys been doing to mark Parish Month for St. Peter?
Well, we haven't been able to do much so far because our committee has just been named and we are still trying to put a full complement together. We're still looking for a secretary and floor members. So it's not much that we are doing now, but on our program we have a church service which will be held at the St. Peter's Parish Church on the 27th of February. And we plan on continuing some of our online programs which we did last year, which involves getting to interact with the community. Did you know about St. Peter? Anything that you know about St. Peter? Those fun facts.
Yes, yes. So that's a community engagement activity. But you said you're still looking for a couple members, either be it the floor or the secretary. So for anyone watching from St. Peter right now who wants to volunteer to be a part of it, how can they contact you guys to put themselves forward?
Well, you could contact the CICS first of all, or you can contact myself at goab_1219@hotmail.com. The applications will be sent to you. You'll just complete them, have your interview, and you go from there.
Let's talk about the benefits of serving, though, on the committee. You know, they see it and they figure, oh my goodness, that's so much work. Is it so?
Well, it would appear that way, but if you have a good team who works together and gel together, that makes the work much easier.
Much more fun, for sure. But you're serving your community. That's what it's about. You're serving the parish that I'm sure you love immensely. And so we want to encourage more people. Now, have you got your parish ambassadors identified for the new program yet?
Not as yet. We're still in the process of interviewing for both the ambassadors and the attendant at this time. So hopefully by next week, we should be having the names of those persons.
That's fantastic. Is there a deadline usually for having a fully constituted committee?
Hopefully before the end of February, we should have had that full complement.
All right. What's your dream?
Because of how things are.
Yeah, I know. What's your dream for your parish, though? What would you love that your parish is able to achieve and to be able to do as a community?
I would love for St. Peter to be shown for what it really is, the history that it has, so much history in St. Peter, and just to have people want to come to St. Peter, embrace it for what it has to offer.
You know, when we think St. Peter, we think of the iconic Spikes Down. You know, you say St. Peter, Spikes Down, and immediately, you know, there's some who would say, I can't get on there. You know, what would you say to those people who would hold that strange attitude, because it's such a beautiful town?
Yes, very beautiful. And it all starts with the history, going back with England and all the architecture that we have to offer. There are plenty of restaurants down here now that you could come and enjoy the fine food.
You're right.
It's a lot. Yeah.
You know, as a northern boy, you know, I've passed through Spikestown. I've gone to school at Leacock's Private, been to Coleridge and Parish, so Spikestown, it's for me a part of my stomping of my life so far. And so I would want to encourage as many people as possible to re-engage with the city of Spikestown. I call it the city of Spikestown. But most of all, take some time to explore St. Peter. It has so much within it. There is the Farley Hill National Park. So talk to me about some of those scenic places that people can find out for themselves when they come in to the parish of St. Peter.
Well, everyone knows Farley Hill for its picnic spots, and then you have all the forts in Speightstown, where all the cannons have been.
Yes.
We have Dover Fort, Orange Street Fort, which used to be in Speightstown. And then there's some forts, some cannons that was there for a while that no one knew about, which is in Six Mens. So
really,
that is a place we're trying now to highlight. There are 8 cannons there overlooking Six Mens Bay.
You serious?
It's an interesting.
Now
very
that
much so.
I did not know. That I did not know. So I can't wait for you guys to start to highlight that so we can all come down and see it. But the Dover one, you know, as a good CP boy, you know, that and it's still there. It is still there. And it's one of those places you can too go and engage with our history. So there's a lot for you and your committee to be able to tell people about St. Peter. And I really do hope that very soon that you get your secretary in place, your attendant in place, those who serve as floor members, and you conclude that search for your ambassadors and get the program rolling. On the 27th, you said there's a church service at St. Peter's Parish Church. That's at 9:30 in the morning, you know.
Yes.
The organist, I know him well. That's my brother.
Yes, I know.
You know,
Yes.
but it's a really wonderful little place to worship indeed. And get out and enjoy St. Peter indeed, folks. We want to encourage you. Greg, we got to leave it there because time is really up against us this morning. So Greg Agard,
thanks for having me.
you're welcome. The chairman of the St. Peter's Parish Independence Committee, encouraging all of you to volunteer, to step forward, to represent your parish and represent it well. Thank you so much. All the best.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're going to take a break here. We're coming back with a Bajan Afar in just a moment.
Morning, morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
"21 now to 8 o'clock as we meet a Bajan Afar. This Bajan boy lives in the United Kingdom. His name is Anthony Warner. Good morning to you, Anthony.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
I'm well, thank you for asking. How do you do?
I'm getting through, man. I'm okay so far.
I'm getting through. That's great. Such a Bajan you are. So, how long have you been living in the UK now, Anthony?
I've been back there for about 20 years, I think it is. 25 years, maybe.
25 years in the UK. That's a quarter of a century. That's a significant portion of your lifetime.
Indeed, but I'm coming back soon. So I'm sort of out here right now, kind of renovating property and things like that.
So you're in Barbados at the moment?
Yeah.
Okay, well, welcome home. It's good to have you home. How long have you been here now in Barbados? Back home for a little bit? How long have you been?
About 3 weeks so far. I've got another week to go.
Oh, so talk to me about what it... And this would have been your last visit, most recent visit. When was the last visit prior to now?
Last visit would have been last year, just after they relaxed the COVID rules, so I could come down the road. Yeah, last year sometime.
So are you one of those Bajans who live afar who loves to come home?
Oh, well, yeah. Originally when I left, I didn't come back for 7 years, but after that I've come back like 2 or 3 times a year to see the family and kind of keep an eye on things.
So what is it that took you across to the UK now to have spent over 25 years there?
Well, originally I went to join the Air Force, and then it ended up being the Swiss, and then I kind of established Black History Walking Tours, which is the thing I've been doing for the last 15 years now. So 15 years I've been running Black History walks, talks, and films in London since 2007.
They consider you the activist in residence at the UCL Sarah Parker Remond Center. What is it? What is that center about, and why that title?
All right, so that center was set up as a result of student protests to have more diversity on the curriculum and to have more content related to African Caribbean people in London. So UCL is a top-level university, and they had demands from the students to actually have more representation. So because of that, they set up the Sarah Parker Remond Center, and Sarah Parker Remond Center is named after an African-American abolitionist who was in the UK in the 1850s, 1860s, and she was a fiery speaker. She traveled the entire country giving lectures on equality and anti-racism, basically. So she was a bit like Frederick Douglass, but a female version, you could say. And apart from doing that in the UK, she then goes to Italy and becomes an obstetrician, a doctor in Italy. So she's a really incredible character, and that's where they got the name from.
But you're the activist in residence. You know, as I was teasing, I thought of you as the rebel in residence. Would that be a fair title to give to you as well?
That, you know? I am the first one to be activist resident at the Sarah Parker Remond Center, and that term is an American term. And again, it comes out of kind of the movement for equality, in that there should be people in society, in institutions, who represent grassroots activists. So that's what I am. I'm an activist from London, and because of my track record of doing various Black History events, they recruited me to be part of UCL to organize walks and talks and films and install plaques to represent Black history. So that's been my role.
As diverse as it is, the society in the UK, at the same time, the place of the black man in that society is, I suppose, also considered to be under threat. So what is it that you do that helps to raise the consciousness, not just walks, but what else can you do to be able to bring greater awareness that racism exists, but us as black people are not inferior?
So one of the things we do is we organize, well, there's me, we organize walks, talks, and films. So the films aspect now, every month of the year, we will show a film from the African diaspora at a huge cinema called the BFI South Bank. So we'll show the film and we'll have a Q&A for a couple of hours afterwards. So it's a regular monthly event which showcases Black excellence from around the world. So recently we showed the Errol Barrow film by Marcy Weeks, that film that was released years ago. So we had it in this 400-seat cinema with a Q&A with the director, and the place was full of people who had never heard that story before. So that's the sort of thing that we're doing. We're putting on these films and also organizing these walks and also organizing these river cruises. So there's a Black History river cruise on the River Thames, 3 hours long. We go from Temple to Vauxhall to Greenwich, and on the trip we show people all the Black history that's in the River Thames itself, on either side of the River Thames. And also we have people on board the boat dressed as characters from history who tell their stories too. So that's been very popular as well.
You're looking for change, I suspect. That's one of the reasons why you're doing this. You want to see people move to become a lot more mature and open-minded to the culture. Have you seen that change, and what keeps you motivated?
Yeah, I have seen the change. I've seen people come on a to an event, and initially they have no idea. They're a bit confused. They don't really know their history at all. And after they've been to just even one event, they're like walking out taller and have more confidence, and more assurance. And I've been able to tell stories about Bajans, for example, who people don't know nothing about. So, for example, there's a guy called Dr. Cecil Belfield Clark, and Dr. Cecil Belfield Clark was a Bajan born in 1894. He got a Barbados scholarship in 1914 to Cambridge, right? So imagine this is during World War One. You have a black guy from Barbados at Cambridge. He then becomes a doctor, very well qualified doctor, well respected doctor in Elephant Castle for about 45 years. So from 1920 onwards up until the 1980s, he's a doctor, and people are coming to see him from all across the capital. But apart from that, Dr. Cecil Belfield Clark Bajan sets up his co-founder of a group called the League of Colored Peoples in 1931, which in effect is a civil rights group based in Great Russell Street in the UK. And they fight for equality in housing, education, employment. They organize meetings, etc. And Cecil Belfield Clark is also, to this very day, recognized at St. Catherine's College in Cambridge. There's a prize in his honor. It's named the Cecil Belfield Clark for Biological Sciences, and it's awarded every year. So this guy is a legend, but people don't know about him.
So the story has to be told. And speaking of the story having to be told, you've written a book, Black History Walks, in London, Volume 1. Is his story also told in that book? And who else have you been able to share? Whose story have you shared?
All right, so that walk is a combination of 2.5 of our 12 different walks. We've got 12 walks together, and that is 2.5 of them. And in that book, we mentioned him. We also mentioned a woman called Dame Jocelyn Barra, who's of Bajan descent. Her dad was from Barbados, and she becomes the first black woman governor at the BBC. She's also the first black woman to become a dame, and she helps to do the 1968 Race Relations Act. So basically, she's another aspect of black civil rights. She gets laws passed through to protect people in the UK from discrimination. So the book is full of all these kind of tidbits of information which cover North, South, East London, and the book comes out in October, although there's going to be an audible version in a couple of months. So it's a comprehensive kind of overview of the sort of thing you'd see in a typical walk or a cruise, but it's in written form and also, of course, in audible form now too.
This is fantastic. You know, for those who may have missed it, what's the lady's name again?
Dame Jocelyn Barra. Her dad was from Barbados, her mum's from Trinidad, and she was the first black female governor of the BBC and the first black dame, and she did a massive amount of work for equal rights in Britain. So you've got to know about Dame Jocelyn Barra, a legend. She just died just the other year.
She was a Barrow. That means she must be from St. Lucie.
Well, I have to check this out, right? But the name is there, Dame Jocelyn Barra, and her dad was Clifton Barra, but I don't know what parish he was from. Okay. So I can find out. But yeah, there's a lot of history there. There's a whole bunch of bitches that did amazing things in the UK. A lot of them.
Interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. We can't wait to get our hands on that book for sure. When it is released, do remember to send it to us here. We'd love to tell people about it as well. You know, we can read about who we are even in the UK, so we can also learn more about who you are even in the UK as well. You know, it's been so wonderful talking to you, Anthony. It's a conversation to be continued. My producer will be contacting you. So I hope that while you're still here, we can have some more conversations. So thank you so much for joining with us. Look out for the call, all right?
No problem. See you later. Ciao.
Good man indeed. Anthony Warner, an activist in residence at the Sarah Parker Ramon Center for the Institute of Advanced Study in the United Kingdom. Hoping to continue that conversation with him. Such interesting tidbits he's picked up about our history and the people of our people in the United Kingdom. We'll take a break here. We'll come back with more in just a moment.
Morning, morning. Good morning. Good morning to you.
High in the sky, over mountains and valleys, so afraid was I. Somebody touch me, my blood run cold. It was my Jesus who came to save my soul. Look, the Garden of Eden. The Garden of Eden.
The Garden of Eden there. That man is Kenneth Cayenne. He is a gospel artist. He's Grenadian, but he's been living here for a little while now. And that is his song. He has a song in his heart indeed. We're happy to join with him this morning. Good morning to you, Kenneth.
Good morning to you, Payson. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm well too.
That's good to hear. You know, there's a song in your heart, and that song was born out of an experience you had. Talk to me about your journey with God thus far, and what is it that brought you closer in relationship with our God?
Yes, good morning again. I used to sing calypso in Concourse 10 for years. I love the art. But it happened that in 2012, I had a serious accident. And that accident, I was home for 18 months. But in my hospital bed, I start composing. Because this accident took me to a coma. I was in a coma. So I started writing gospel. When I came back from the hospital, I started writing gospel music.
You've been touched in a very strange way. You know, there's John Wesley says he's been touched, his heart felt strangely warmed. And so you've been warmed to gospel music now, having before been seeing soca. And ever since then, you've been producing for the Lord. So this song, The Garden of Eden, is based on what? What was it that inspired you to do this one?
Well, you see, I am doing an album. And at the time I was in the studios, and one of my fellow artists, Daniel John, told me, it seems as though Aaron Lane, the player of the music, does slower song better. I have a lot of reggae songs. So there and then, the inspiration come to me. And when I went home, I picked up my guitar and started strumming, and it just finally came to me.
And so your song has a message for somebody somewhere. What do you think that is?
Yes, well, whatever writing, remember I was a calypsonian, so I always write stories. So my experience, my personal experience, I put my personal experience into my music. And hoping that my music will bless somebody's heart. Because at the moment I'm putting God first in my life.
That's very good, very good. You said it's not is this your first production, or you're creating an album, and so is this the first of release from the album?
No, there's 5 singles out already.
Okay, there are 5.
Beyond the Grave, He's Alive, He's Coming, Come Taste and See. Yes, there's more to come very soon, very, very soon.
So what name do you go by? Do you go by the artist name Kenneth Cayenne, or do you use another name?
Yes, Kenneth Cayenne. In Calypso I used to go as Cayenne.
So you use your name. Your artist name is your name, which is what it is. This is fantastic. Didn't know. I must confess, I didn't know the music existed. And so, do we have it here at the CBC? Do you have any idea?
Yes, the music was sent to CBC, yes.
Then I'm going to go in search of it so that we can have it played more regularly on radio for sure. Now, you're from Grenada, and so you've been living here now since 1976.
Very long time. Right here, and my children are all born here.
What does it mean to you to be resident here, having your children born here, and to adopt Barbados as your home? How does that feel?
Yeah, well, the story lies that my grandfather came from South District. My grandmother and grandfather met in Cuba. My father was a Cuban. They came here and they wanted police in Grenada, and so my grandfather went to Grenada.
Okay.
So I have roots up in the Niles, the Strands, and the Kings.
All right.
Some of my family, I don't know.
So we know you now. You're one of us. Cuba, Grenada, Barbados, all over Barbados, and now your children are here and you're living here. So in terms of getting your music out and about, and so that people can have it in their hands, how can people access your music?
Well, my music on all the platforms, Facebook, Instagram, wherever the platform are, the music, you could find it.
Mm-hmm.
My email address is William Guyana at dj.com.
William
at gmail.com.
William Kayan
at
gmail.com. And of course, once you
get my name is very hard to pronounce sometimes, so it's Cayenne, Kayan, like in cayenne pepper.
I got you. So his name is Cayenne, but the email address is William Cayenne, Cayenne at gmail.com. And if you want to book him, you can contact him there as well and get his music, get great music. And of course, it's available on platforms. You can get out and see it for yourself, hear it for yourself, experience it for yourself. And you said while you were here, you would have competed. We used to have this Gospel Awards. Folks, you all know this, MIGOB. And so Tamara Marshall beat you that year.
Yes, that was my first entering into competition.
Yeah.
We had some big Mark Lard, and the MC was Julian Rogers.
Yes.
It was amazing.
Yes, those were the days. You listed Tony Poser Grisette as one of those people who you admire.
He was the greatest mentor in my life. I was going to school as a boy. I used to go to the jukebox, take 25 cents and play jukebox just to hear Tony Grisette sing. And when I came to this country, I shared the same stage on the Calypso stage with him, and he talked to me and encouraged me. He showed me how to dress, how to perform.
Nice.
So, I have a lot. When people told me about other people, yes, I talked to a lot of people in my life. Richard Stout, a very good person. I get advice. From the time I start, I had to ask for advice for the people who was there before me.
Right. And so Tony is one of those who helped you on the journey. Well done. He's a good guy. He's truly a good guy. Listen, Kenneth, I want to thank you so much. I can only wish you only God's blessings with your work as you continue to minister on his behalf. Indeed, Kenneth Cayenne, he is a gospel artist. He's in Barbados. He's been here. His children are here. He's from Barbados. His grandparents are from here, even though his parents met in Cuba and he was born there. But thank you so much for joining with us. I wish you the very best going forward in your career. Thank you.
Thank you very much too.
Blessings to you indeed. Kenneth Cayenne is his name. All right, before we go, let me just remind you, remember we're also trying to raise some funds to assist Fran Wickham. Fran, who was former manager of the Frank Cullimore Hall. There she is, smiling face. So Calypso and Spooge, for the love of Fran, Calypso and Spooge is on this Saturday, tomorrow, at 7 at the Frank Cullimore Hall by ticket only. Your contribution is $80, which you deposit in the box at the door. But you must go to the Frank Cullimore Hall to secure your ticket because it's by ticket only. All proceeds will be gifted to our beloved Fran. Fran, as you know, has cancer, but she needs your support as she continues to recuperate. Every cent goes towards assisting her be able yet again. And we thank you in advance for your kind support and generosity. You can also make a deposit, and that information we've posted on our social media already, but you can contact Eleanor Rice or Cynthia Ralston, and they will be able to guide you as to how you can lend your support for the love of Fran. That's it for today. That's it for the week as well. Thank you so much for joining us. My producer has been Alicia Asgrant, technical director Roel Ford, sound engineer Christopher Blenman, at Master Control, you know who, Tamisha Green. I'm Pearson Bowen. Wish you a wonderful weekend. If it's God's will, we'll see you again on Monday. Bye-bye.
Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Barbados, get up. Good morning.